Welcome back to New Agreements. I am Dave Erasmus, I'm your host, and I'm really chuffed to say that this week we've got an amazing podcast with none other than Tim Lovejoy from the Sunday branch, from Soccer AM. I've got to know Tim over the last couple of years. We've spent a few walks and times at the cottage together. He is such an interesting guy, and through his line of work and his podcast, he has met so many interesting people, and it's interesting watching and talking with him as he begins to assemble this into some kind of cohesive narrative that he owns for himself as he's exploring the nature of humanity. I won't spoil it for you, but what I will say is that it was really exciting to be able to sit with someone who loves the live environment, and there are a few things that happen along the way on this podcast that you couldn't have planned for. Would normally edit out of a show, but not when it's live like this. So I really hope you guys enjoy it. We snipped a couple of bits out for brevity, but other than that, it pretty much runs all the way through. So I hope you enjoy the third episode of New Agreements. Thanks for making time again, Tim.
Pleasure.
It was the cottage first time.
Yeah.
Where I had my little off-grid retreat. We spent 24 hours. It was cold, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was cold, but it was quite warm by the trees. The trees give out warmth.
Definitely shelter. They stop the wind getting you.
That's it. Yeah.
There was a bit of that, and then last time we walked around Richmond Park, which was lovely. It was boiling hot. Yeah, I got sunburned.
Yeah, that was good fun.
And now we find ourselves in the autumn. I've never been here before. This is Chiswick House.
Yeah, I come here quite a lot actually. It's a nice little place for me to come and relax and look at all the birds who are all about to come and
they're literally mobbing us.
Yeah.
I think they think we got some food for them.
Yeah, they do. But there's so much life here and wildlife and stuff. I come here all the time.
And some serious trees as well. I mean,
lovely trees. I get to climb the trees with my kids, which is always nice. And it means you can be childish again, you know, and go back to that thing, you know. I always, as an adult, you always walk past a tree and think I'd like to climb on that, but for some reason it stops you doing it. When you've got a kid, you can go, hey, let's go and climb the tree.
Yeah, it's
and like you got a chance to do it again, and it's a really nice thing, climbing a tree. It really is a nice thing.
It's a license to go back into the land of imagination, I guess.
Yeah, exactly right. And also sort of just the strength needed to climb a tree, you know, with using the whole of your body to get up a tree. It's something you do when you're a kid, and then you don't ever use your body like that when you're an adult until you get kids again and can start doing it again. So it's a nice thing to do.
And we're lucky because, you know, in our work we get to try new things, meet new people, and have those bits of kind of inspiration, or even, you know, like what we're doing today. But I imagine it must be even more of a divorce for somebody who's working a 9 to 5 in an office, that land of creativity and imagination, unless they've become a musician or a creator of some kind. If you're an administrator, it must be really hard to bridge that gap, unless you have kids, which is probably the magic sauce really to bridge that gap.
We've created this, I can't remember who I discussed this with in my podcast, but we've created a society now which we're trying to export to the world. One of misery, one which is so far away from nature. We've even got to the stage where everyone's going, rather than like every other creature in the world, and most of the planet is going, get me some calories so I can live. We're going, I want to cherry pick my calories. I only eat food beginning with a G, or I'm a vegan, I'm a pescatarian, I'm a carnivore, I'm the keto diet, I'm on the, it's like, wow, where have we come? And the abundance of food only has happened in recent decades.
Yeah.
Even, they were rationed in the Second World War 100 years ago, and then less than that, isn't it? How many years ago was it? Well, yeah, less than that. So you got Russia, and then, it's only sort of 70s we had frozen food, and then the 80s. Suddenly we've got so much food, and we don't know what to do with it. And we're obviously eating too much because we're still got the instincts to store the calories. Just don't know where your next meals come, because we're still basic animals.
We're in the feast and famine mindset, but we're just feasting all the time, and then struggling to know how to spend the calories. what's the Hari guy?
Johan Hari, yeah.
Because he talks a lot about depression, isolation,
Yeah.
and the
Not connecting.
not connecting and the
Yeah.
role of relationship in our well-being.
Yeah, well, we've created societies which aren't connected because we're getting rid of religion. Not sure that's such a bad thing, but we're getting rid of society. We're deciding to live as individuals, is what he's saying, and we're deciding not to connect. Yeah, what we're doing here is will be a great moment for us today, where we feel comfortable because we're connecting and doing something nice, and people are getting rid of that to go on to these. I'm not saying they're a bad idea, but that's what they're doing.
I think the thing with religion is it has provided an important role in our lives that's outside of the work. So it's provided a structure for us to get together in another space to really be honest and depending on the tradition and how it works. But a common denominator in a lot of religion is that space to be together, to sing songs together, to be honest and open,
together.
to meditate, to have quiet.
Yeah.
And so if you take away the theological layer and just think about the practice of what it allows space for in our lives, it is quite important, and we have to be a bit more proactive about how we find that if we don't have that in society.
What do you mean? We need to spread religion?
No, proactive about creating those quiet spaces.
Yeah.
How do you we're not just gonna, we might, we'll see how the podcast goes, but we're not just gonna sing a song together here. There's something about the order and the structure of getting together that allows you to do something that if you were trying to self-organise, you might find it really awkward. But every single week you were gonna go to this place where you do these things that kind of bond you together. And I think one of the things, if we don't have much structure, is that it becomes a kind of extrovert's world. It becomes the people that have already got the social capital, that already got lots of friends, they might be living quite a nice connected life. But those that maybe don't have those skills naturally, they kind of depend on that structure of knowing every week, every Thursday, every Sunday, I can go to this place and I can really reconnect with people and find that community.
Yeah, I spoke to Drew Povey on my podcast, who was the headmaster on the Educating Manchester. I can't remember the name of his school at the moment. It was regarded as the worst school in Britain, and he was the guy who took it over. And one of the things he said to me, it's a great podcast, talked a lot about education, which, as you know, is something that intrigues me. But one of the things he said is one of the important points of school is they bring a community together. Now, sadly, with our way we have our schools, we separate our children through often finances, wealth, through religion, because we have faith schools, we have private schools, we have grammar schools, which we take the intelligent children out and separate them from the rest. We have same-sex schools. So what we decided to do as a society, which I think is a let's forget the idea of choice for 1 second, right? And just go for the idea that let's bring a society together. I don't think it's a great idea for us to go, let's separate our children. It's one place that all the families can come together as well, from all the different religions, all the different wealth structures, all the different, for the children to have the different sexes coming together, and you all come together in one common place. It brings everyone in the community together. And he was saying that's what an important role schools bring as well, which is why schools should involve parents and everything. However, we've decided for some reason to separate them all out.
Yeah, it creates the melting pot, doesn't it? Not just for the students, but for the parents waiting at the gate, who are, sitting chin-wagging with whoever then may be there. And if there's only a unique strata of society waiting at the gate with you, they're the only people that you're going to be hearing the stories about. I know that for me, I've got a friend who's a A&E nurse. I've got some friends who are teachers. And I know that just seeing them regularly keeps me rooted into wow, flip, there's some people working a lot harder, getting paid a lot less and dealing with a lot more stress than I am. If I didn't have that and I only minced around with people who were doing media type stuff, I think I would lose my rooting, really, my footing in society. So I think if you've got a design that allows for diversity, that's surely going to make society stronger over the long run.
Well, what happens in rich societies, I've been reading about this recently, is we get choice. Poor societies don't have choice. Let's just take schools, for instance. We have a choice. You can go to private school, state school, you can try and get your kids to grammar school, you can do all sorts of different things. And we believe that's freedom. In fact, it gives us plenty of anxiety. But if you look at poorer societies, they have the choice if their kid goes to the school,
Yeah.
or they don't because they can't get there because it's too far to walk or something. But that is their choice. And then they go, hopefully we can go to that school. We're in a unique position in Britain, America as well. They do it. We have this private education system and everything. I'm not anti it, by the way. I'm just thinking about it. I'm thinking through the pros and cons of it. And in a lot of, I don't think what people realise in a lot of the rest of the world, they don't have that. They have local schools where the community comes together, like in Scandinavia and Germany and Finland, where everyone regards the greatest education system. And, you know, they just have the one school that you go to, smaller populations.
And we can fact check this, but I'm pretty sure that in one of the Scandi countries, they've banned private schools. They see it as a social ill on society because of the sort of separating effect that it has, and it's interesting to know that it's not normal, as in it's not unanimous, shall we say, that other societies do think of separating students in different ways to how we do it. And to be honest, I need to think more about it, but I think I probably lean that way. I think when we look at the kind of, I don't want to get too much into the politics chat now about where we're at, because we could be here all day, as we have been for the last 3 years, but it's like, you look at it, looks divided. You can see it. You can see it in how the views are expressed politically, and I'm just not sure that that's the strongest way for us to build our future, because we are going into very uncertain and difficult times. I
always say this, it's really tough to argue for separating our children through wealth, religion, sex, intelligence. I mean, even in the intelligence one, people go, what? You're ridiculous, you've got to stream the bright kids. And like, no, because that's not what society's like. It's not reflecting society. And I think children should all be together and realise that we all have to, you know, work out what's going on in life. Or otherwise, all the smart kids, they leave school and they just go, why isn't everyone smart like me? You know, it's like, you know.
And it also depends on how you define the smartness and how you measure for it.
Yeah, exactly right.
And it gets very difficult.
Exactly right.
At the end of the day, we've all got to get on together. We've all got to figure a way to stay alive, to have enough carbon, so that enough oxygen, rather, enough carbon sequestered, so that we don't boil this place that we call home. And it's not going to happen by us sitting in our caves on our own.
The choice thing, I've been looking into that a lot recently, because I've found it's one of those, I do a lot of working out why I am the way I am, and I'm not happy with choice. It gives me a lot of anxiety. Just recently I've been trying to work out what I'm going to do about a car. Oh my God, it's driving me nuts.
I've been through that.
It's driving me nuts.
It's like a part-time job for 3 months.
Oh God, yeah. Well, you're sitting there doing that, and it's just like the choice we're given. It's supposed to give us freedom. It's not. It's ruining my life. Stop giving me choice. You know, it'd be better to go back to Eastern Europe. You got the choice of a car or no car.
Yeah, exactly.
The car you get is that one, and that's it. The little square box thing.
I'm with you. I like 2 or 3 choices. I like a couple of choices. It makes me feel that I'm engaging.
Yeah.
I don't like everything being dictated to me, but equally having 1,000 things to choose from and having to research it all and learn about it, because you can, because the internet's there. So it becomes a part-time, especially if you don't have strong structure to your days, like myself, and maybe some of your days are like that as well. You can you become an expert in hybrid cars around the £20,000 mark, and it's like, but that is completely useless. I could have just had someone come and tell me the answer. Wait, before we get too far down this road, let's go back a little bit. Right. And for those that don't know you, or probably more likely only know you in sort of through one hat that you've worn, where are you from, and what's been the sort of the 2 or 3 plotted steps in the journey that leads you, well, not really to this bench, but happens to be today?
What, life-wise, career-wise?
Both, yeah. I mean, literally, I don't know where you were born.
Just out in Hertfordshire. Just went to like normal school. Left normal sort of person. Left with just some O levels. Ended up working in clothes shops, and you know, it was kind of 80s, end of the 80s. Was it end of the 80s? Yeah, it must be. And I was just like, okay, let's go and make money, because yuppies were around then and stuff. ended up in finance, was rubbish. Usual sort of stuff, and then started thinking about what I'm going to do with my life. And
At what kind of age then?
late teens.
Okay, yeah.
Started thinking, well, I'd quite like to work in TV, but as everyone said, people. Well, my dad sort of said people like us don't work in TV, and then everybody said, you know, you can't get in TV. But I was right place, right time. I know it's weird, but it's that. Perfect storm. The channels, there was becoming more channels, satellite and cable were coming in and things like that. And I was a chancer and just thought, well, I'm going to give it a go. I knew I could talk, and I knew I had communication skills. That's one thing I could do. And I found that I became really comfortable in front of a camera. Anyway, I've cut to the camera bit, but it was a lot of hard work, just sort of trying to, well, not hard work, but a lot of effort.
Yeah.
Some very embarrassing things to do to try and get myself on TV.
I'm not going to ask.
Well, ended up, I just used to run around London with cameras and microphones, and it was, you know, the day before you had to actually take these tapes, and you needed a sound man in those days, so I'd have to hire it all and then take them and get it edited. But I used to go around pretending I worked for Cable London, because nobody really knew what Cable London was. It was just this new thing which arrived. A bit like when the internet came along and everyone started going, yeah, I've got a .com thing.
Yeah. It's
Well,
just a buzzword. It's like blockchain now.
Yeah,
People
blockchain.
saying
Yeah,
it's a blockchain thing. Oh, yes,
brand
very
new
good.
blockchain
Must be great.
business. Yeah. Do you want to invest? So then I ended up working in TV, and I think the drive to go on TV was to be loved, and then be popular and famous. And then when I got on, I was like, hey, do you know what? I really enjoy doing this. I enjoy being live. I love being in front of the cameras. I hate doing pre-recorded stuff. I like everything to be live and exciting and real. And I like meeting people and like interviewing people, and generally most people fascinate me. I quite like humans.
Yeah.
And I like what we're doing. I'm interested in it. And so now I've ended up doing Soccer M for 11 years, producer, presenter, writer. I started on The Big Breakfast, I suppose, where I was a producer there. Then got to when Chris Evans' time, end of his time. And then, Soccer M for 11 years, now Sunday Brunch, set up a online channel with Simon Fuller, which died. Everyone says it's before. Videos used to buffer in those days. I mean, how we're trying to set up an online thing where things buffer, I mean, it's mental that people would say. Anyway, it was before smartphones and everything, so it was pointless, really. But it was good to give it a go, and then got into podcasting because, again, I like new things. I love change. I'm one of those weirdos who likes things to change and likes looking forward in the future. I love all that stuff. So I'm now working on doing a lot of podcasting, and I'm finding it fascinating. And the podcasting I'm doing, I didn't really know what I was doing, so I started doing just a funny agony aunt. Then I started interviewing interesting people. Then I started interviewing like people who could teach me things, so scientists and people on health. People like a brain surgeon. I've interviewed futurists. I've interviewed athletes. Anything which I thought I could learn something. I did some celebrity, and I still do. But I like picking celebrities that I think I'm going to learn off. And I've just gone down that road of just trying to learn as much about stuff as I possibly can, and I have, which has made me question everything. From, as I say, education, my health, the whole lot.
Well, and that, I mean, obviously I knew about you through Soccer AM and Sunday Brunch, but really, as we've got to know each other over the last year or two, the person you're describing now is the person that I know.
Right.
And that's what's been so fascinating for me, is to watch you using podcasting, and hopefully this, for me, will be something similar as well, as that kind of rapid tool for learning about life, a bit of a renaissance of learning, if you will. And I think as we talk and walk, it just feels like we could just go on forever, because, as you say, the main common denominator is we just love people.
The
we love
reality,
listening and learning from them.
Well, the reality of how I know you really is I listened to you on Robbie Knox's podcast.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
And I went to Robbie, I want to meet that guy.
That's right,
because you fascinated me. You said half a dozen things on the podcast, which is what I love listening to podcasts. There's always one or two little things. you said a few things on the podcast which really struck home, and I went, I want to meet this guy because I think he's really interesting. You were not arrogant enough to go, I know everything. You were like, let me meet people who know everything, and I'll learn off them. It was like, I was like, that's brilliant, because that's what I've tried to do all my life, and it's nice to meet people who want to do that. Let's go and interview people and meet people, and then you just take little snippets of things. Something else you've done in my life, which is really, when we went for a walk in the woods, and you said, and it really hit home because I sort of knew it, but you described it so well. You went, what I love about this is, when we're walking through the woods, is you said, look at all the death around, and it's like, it's brilliant. It's that moment. We hate death so much. Burying my brother died, and so it's one of those big things in my life. We hate it so much, yet look around us. It's like we're in autumn now, so everything's coming to, like, everything's closing down.
Yeah.
And it's like you pointed that out to me, and you went to me, where the death is, look at how the light's coming, and now all the life's coming up. And I was just like, wow, this is what we're actually doing as humans, but we've moved so far away from it.
Yeah, we're trying to avoid it.
We're trying to avoid it. We're now living in this like fantasy reality,
Yeah.
and we've forgotten what we're doing. So,
New Agreements is still supported by paid.co.uk, the payment platform for freelancers. So if you work for yourself, if you're a contractor, a YouTuber, an influencer, if you do graphic design work for people, then check out the platform. You can send all your invoices for free and you can get paid instantly if you want. That can be the difference between life and death for lots of businesses, especially when you've got to pay other people out for the project as well. If you need any help, DM me or message paid.co.uk, but check it out and see how it works.
And so, thanks for that, by the way. That's nice. I appreciate that. And that is the joy of being able to just have space and time, is you do get to reflect, and when you get to share that with people, you can have meaningful moments that I've noticed. The thing that I found is that I thought I would gain insight being out in nature in the woods, that I would then become sort of maybe a bit wiser in all of my life. But what I've noticed is, if you take me back to the city, you take me back to the busyness and the meetings and the rushing around, I become just as I was 5 years ago. I become self-absorbed. I become unthankful for small things. I become busy and stressed, and all the things that I thought I was conquering. But what I've realized is that I am my best self when I'm in these environments, and that's not because I'm getting wiser, it's because the environment is sort of wiser. And so if you put me in there, I think I become slightly better version of myself. So I like meeting people in the woods because I think they get a better impression of who I am, because I am probably acting out of a better version of myself than if we first met in the city, in a bar. I don't think you would have found me the same way, and so I enjoy that, and I've got a real respect and reverence for the woods because of all that. But going back to this journey then that you're on.
That though, I ended up reading quite a lot of Buddhism at one stage in my life, and one of the great things, I'm saying this is a Buddhist quote, but it could be just someone else's. I don't know. I'm aligning it to that, but they say meditate for 10 minutes every day. Unless you're too busy, then meditate for an hour. and I've always loved that, because I do that now. So recently I've had a bit of anxiety with so many projects on. So what I do is I go, and it's the same when you go into the city again from the nature, you go, just do nothing, go for a walk, and it'll find its way, because nothing's that important.
Yeah,
really.
Exactly. Well, one thing you've given me is the book, the Zen and the Art of Archery.
Do you like that book?
I love it. I love it because it's small. Small books are my favourite, because I really don't like it when people. That's why I end up watching. Hello. That's why I end up watching often a lecture instead of reading a book, because I feel like people rattle on a bit too long on these concept books. But I think it is perfectly, especially because of the nature of the topic of Zen and the art of archery. You don't want it to rattle on. You want it to be exactly minimalist and precise.
I've read so many of those books, those self-help books. They all should be about 3 chapters long, but because it's a book and they have to pad it out, literally they're all padding. You just know all the points. It's how they can't do it any other way. That's why.
But you kind of want like a history, sort of a preamble.
Yeah.
The point.
Yeah. The solution.
Illustrate the point 3 ways, and then you can skip that chapter if you want.
Yeah.
And then what's next?
Solution.
You know what? Solution.
What's your solution to this dilemma we're in?
And that's about it. And but so on this learning journey, then you're meeting all these people. How many podcasts have you done now?
100, maybe 140.
Yeah, that is good work. That is very good work. Do you feel like you're changing as a result of it?
100%.
And in what way?
Just seem to be learning more about myself, really, in a great scheme of things, and society and humans. I'm learning. Dogs having a fight. I'm just looking at the world differently. I think we all become quite closed, and suddenly I've opened my mind to so much more.
Dogs are having a field day, aren't they?
Yeah. The important thing is rethinking a lot of things and not always believing I'm right, and just trying to rethink everything. A friend of mine, I don't know which way you voted in Brexit. I voted Remain, but my friend went to me. He said, I love this, because he went to me, which way did you vote, Tim? And I voted Remain. He goes, oh, Tim, oh dear, you know you're going to be on the wrong side of history. And that amused me so much, that he's like so determined. And then I thought, well, he might be right. He might be right. I'm going down the real media perspective of Remain, let's stay together, Europe, and all this sort of stuff. They could be, the people who voted Brexit could be right. And it's like, so I'm enjoying watching the Brexit process, for instance, because I'm not really taking sides, because I like watching all the humans, the way they're working it all out, the hatred, the animosity, everything else is going. I'm in sort of, in a sick way, enjoying watching it all play out without taking sides, and I will often engage with anyone for any side, because I want to understand what they're feeling and what they're thinking. And that's the thing what the podcast's done, it's opened my mind to different ways of thinking about things.
So do you think, before we talk about anything else of the specifics that you've been, we've already talked a bit about education, do you think that it has fundamentally given you the concept of rethinking things?
Yes.
So rather than the object of life being, I find things and then I find things that reinforce those ideas and slowly build up a wall around my beliefs so I can defend them.
Yeah.
Do you think, I mean, not saying you were necessarily really doing that,
no,
but
I
do you
think
think
we all
it's
do
sort
confirmation bias, but I think you can now, I know, definitely rethinking everything, because I'm speaking to experts and I'm open and I want to have a conversation, so I'm intrigued by what everybody thinks. And so I'm definitely rethinking everything. I think everyone should. And I think one of the things that's happened in the world is the internet's come along. And I think when we look back on this time, no one's going to go Trump, no one's going to go Boris Johnson, Brexit, whatever else. They're going to go, wow, that was when the internet happened, wasn't it? That's when it really exploded. It's changing our lives as we know it. Now, I grew up thinking I was maybe a bit thick, because I went to school and I didn't really engage with the academic side of things. I didn't really engage with the teachers. All I wanted to do was play football. And I've always said this, if it wasn't for my sports teacher, I don't think I'd have gone a lot, but I played a lot of sport, and he made school bearable for me, because we just had so much. We were a very successful football team. We had such a laugh, and we played basketball as well, and we did everything. And it was just really good. Any spare moment we'd be training and doing that. So I sort of went to school to play football, really, and I loved that. But when the internet came along, suddenly I could go, why are those dogs barking at each other? Well, I'll look it up, and then I could start researching everything, and before you'd have to go to a library or buy a book, or everyone used to say, are you well read, because that was, do you have the internet in your head? I don't need it anymore. I can say, no, I'm not well read, but I can find out everything, because it's all in my computer. And then you can go off and find out information with podcasting and TED Talks and everything else as well. I can suck in all the information from everybody, so I'm thoroughly enjoying it, but my mind's changing constantly. That's the only problem, rapidly swinging around.
And I guess the plus side is it makes learning accessible to people like probably you and me, who I bobbled through school, it was all right, but I never thought I was a learner.
Yeah.
And not until I was in my mid-20s did I learn that I loved learning.
Yeah.
And loved being agile and taking on new information and the quality. And I think this is what we enjoy when we get together, is that quality of interaction that you get where you bounce, and it's not just you've got all the knowledge and I'm going to ask you it all. It's like you'll offer something and then I'll say that and then you'll say this book, and then by the end of it you've shared a lot.
Yeah.
What you have learned, you've been able to like give out to the world, and you've also taken in a bunch of new stuff, and then you just feel there's very few things that I feel more excited by than a quality conversation.
Yeah.
And I guess that's why I've ended up doing like this podcast and things like that, because I will go anywhere really to get a good conversation.
Yeah.
But you're right, it does need, I think, in order to enjoy in that activity, it needs both people to have embraced a view of, I am wanting to rethink the things I think. I'm wanting to slowly adapt and change. And to be honest, I don't know what it would have been like 100 years ago, but in the world we're in, where the internet is breaking apart society, because that's all, as you say, Trump, Boris, the rest of it, all we remember is that's the time where the internet and machine learning broke apart society as we knew it, and we had all these weird things that happened for a while in the adolescence of society. Oh, you're wet. You're so wet. Yeah.
Hey, how you doing?
Hello, mate.
I'm doing a selfie.
You're playing what?
The photograph.
Your dog's so wet, isn't
Yeah, what's he doing? Going for a swim?
I want to look at the photo.
You want to look at the photo?
Ah.
Okay. It's not our photos, Gabe. Come on.
He might find himself in a podcast soon.
I want to see the photo.
No, you can't take the photo.
He's filming video. Nice to meet
Well, it's
you.
nice to meet you, mate. Oh. Actually, it's one of the
Beautiful moment,
see,
wasn't it? Really?
well, and this is the challenge of modern society, isn't it? That's beautiful. That's why I like being out here. But then, when we go into production, I'm going to be thinking, can I put a child in
Oh, yeah,
this
no.
production?
You'll have to
Am I-
fuzzy his face
Yeah,
up.
am I doing some bad thing?
Yeah.
And you think, such a nice interaction.
Yeah.
And it's just very human, very normal. Like,
Yeah.
you know, the dog comes and gets me all wet, and he
Yeah.
comes and sits down like a child does, and yeah, hopefully we can leave something of it in, because that's what this is all about.
Yeah.
What were we saying? Rethinking. So you got to embrace the rethinking in order to have that kind of two-way dynamism, I think. And I think that's why probably you've been attracted to the live stuff, because it's one thing to be able to put something in a can, but it's another thing to deal with all of this, all these live, all the stuff that
Yeah.
goes wrong. I remember meeting Claire Balding, and I said to her, you know, why do they hire you over the next young presenter or whatever? And she was like, it's like when it all goes well, there's not really any difference between me and the next punter, but when it goes wrong, and she had this real knowing grin. She's like, that's where I come into my own, because I can just make it work even when it's all going crazy. And I thought probably that's a sign of experience of loving life.
Yeah, I've been doing live TV for 20 years, so you know when it goes wrong, it's the best bit because that's where you earn your money.
Exactly.
And that it's just brilliant, that bit, the chaos of it all. But all the shows I do, I sort of make them quite chaotic anyway, because I quite like the idea that it's the viewers in on it as well as me, and that it's the viewers are looking, going, why are they doing that? That's rubbish. And then I'll go, why are we doing this? It's rubbish, because they're thinking that, and I like that interaction with the
Yeah,
viewers,
you almost give voice to the.
but what I like
the
about
viewer.
live as well is I'm going to struggle with their name now, so I'll just tell you the premise. I can't remember all the names involved, but we had someone on who was talking about ghosts,
Okay.
and we were just doing this cooking thing. We also had someone who was a body language expert who had taught armies and stuff about going to when you go to foreign countries and you're talking to the locals, teaching body language as well, because you've got to do the right thing so they trust you.
Yeah.
Because you've obviously got a gun, you know, like that. And I just went to the woman. I just went, "Are ghosts real?" That was it. 3 words. Are ghosts real? And then stopped. And it's this beautiful moment of live TV. And she said yes, and then he said to me, I don't think she believed her answer, by the way, but that was the best question ever, because there was no fat on that question.
Yeah.
It was just, are ghosts real?
Yeah.
And that's what you get. And I wasn't trying to stitch her up or anything. I'm just like, do you believe in it? You know, it's like, you know, and I just love that liveness where you can just do, you know, just have a little play
And humans are perceptive, aren't they? Like as people watch and listen to this, they will make their own judgments about, were Tim and Dave really relaxed?
Yeah.
You know, do they really like being there, or are they doing it for some other reason? And you don't have to spell all these things out. People are just so good at observing. They can see a silence that takes a fraction of a second longer than another one means something completely different.
Yeah.
And it's easy to sort of like over-produce, isn't it? Over-narrate how much, you know, basically not treat people as clever and perceptive as they really are.
People always say to me, what's that person like on TV? And I go, would you like to go for a drink with them? And they go, yeah. And I go, well, they're nice then. And you can tell. You know, so people go, say, I don't know, Ant and Dec. Ant and Dec are really good fun to hang out with.
Yeah.
But you can tell that. That's why they're the most popular things on TV. If you meet them, they're genuinely really nice people, always really interested in you as well, always ask you how you are. They're good fun to go out with. They're just great guys.
Yeah.
And that's why everyone wants them on their TV.
Yeah.
There's no secret to it, because they go, I like these people. That's
And I found
literally it.
I found that in social as well, whereas people have come to the woods and helped me build things and whatever. Obviously, to begin with, I was very conscious, like, am I letting some nutter into the woods, you know? But I would say 90, probably is about 100 people in total. Probably 99 out of 100, and the one wasn't even bad, but there were some issues. That person carried some issues, but it was like people were exactly who I thought they would be from their very first email, even, let alone a conversation or seeing them on the telly and stuff. And you know, we've got pretty good radars for whether people are out to get us or not.
But we're pretty good at ignoring it as well.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Because why? Because why do you think we ignore it then?
Because I think we want something to work. Let's just take relationships, for instance. You know, there'll be many people watching this who'll be sitting in a relationship, and the, what do they call it these days? There's red flags. There'll be a red flag or alarm bells ringing, and they'll go, don't worry about it, like that. Whereas they should go, red flag, I'm out, because this is going to be crap, or I need to talk about it, or I need to communicate. But they go, nah, I'm not so sure. And there's red flags constantly in people's relationships now, because I think the dating game's really hard now that, you know, years ago, if I wanted to have an affair with somebody, I'd have to phone their home phone. If they were married, there's a chance their husband would. It was really hard work. These days, it's just
stealthy.
It's like a, you know, send them a wink with a tongue out. You know, it's like, you know, it's easy.
Yeah.
And then there's dating apps, and there's this and that and everything in it. So, you know.
I wonder if we ignore things because we've got an agenda. Like we've found a goal that we want.
Yeah.
So I meet you, I like it.
Yeah.
Then I think, oh, this is something I can get from Tim, or something I want to do with Tim, even if it's not as malicious or sort of self-interested as something I can get. Just, this is what I want to do with Tim.
Yeah.
And maybe if you then have that goal in mind, maybe then the signals that I'm then should be hearing, and if I was just sitting openly, I'd be like, oh, that's a big fat red flag. I should be running a mile from Tim, and you don't see it because you get focused vision, I guess. I wonder if it's that.
No, definitely. Like you might have someone you work with, and they turn up late, and you go, oh, don't worry. You know. He turns up late again, or she turns up late again. You go, third time, you should be going, well, there's a definite red flag that they don't care. That there's only one way caring going on. But we're like, no, because I want this relationship to work. Because if it's a business relationship, you know, where you should really be running a million miles. So, you know, if you're, I've interviewed a couple on my podcast of SAS guys, and they found it amazing when they came into civilian life that people would lie. And they were like, but they would be in office spaces or something, and they'd be going, but you lied. And they'd go, sort of thing like that, because we're so used to it. But in the army, you lie, you could die.
Yeah,
You don't lie to each other if
Yeah.
you're in the SAS. You just tell the truth, because if you lie, you might end up in a grave. And
Yeah.
it's like, so to them, the idea of lying is ridiculous. It's like such a dumb thing to do. Yet in most workplaces, people will be doing it constantly, and we
Yeah.
won't be red flagging it. We'll be going, "I'll just give them the benefit of the doubt," you know.
And that reminds me of the Sebastian Junger book, Tribe, where he talks about where humans are happiest is where we are in a nice group of up to 150 people,
Right.
but in difficult environments. That actually, when we are in hostile environments, it almost forces the most community and the
Right.
best behaviour out of us. So if it's always peace, and it used to be like
So
that,
that-
as a tribe running around in the forest.
So then why are we being told that we have to be English, we have to be British, we have to be European, we have to be global? Why are we being told that these are the things that we should want to be? If you're telling me that I should want to be with 150 people, and yet I'm being told I'm a bad person if I voted Brexit because I don't want to be with the rest of those people because I don't feel comfortable. Surely we should be looking at people who vote Brexit and go, they're just not comfortable. Rather than going, they're evil, they're just, they want to go back to 150. I don't know, I'm just putting it out there.
No, I'm with you. I think that, well, what I hope is with blockchain and the modern technologies that go beyond the kind of industrial
Yeah.
paradigm that we've had, where we've had to use hierarchies and things like that in order to organize things and get things done. I'm hoping, my hunch and hope is that we will get full circle back to a place where actually the myth of nation will begin to dissolve, and actually we can organize ourselves well and in an orderly way. All the stuff that we do love about modern society, I hope that we can get to a place where we can respect and honor the smaller groups, the small tribes in which we exist, in a more front and center way, rather than as like the scraps, the shrapnel off the side. The main thing is you're British, and then maybe you know some people in your street, maybe you know some people at the school gate, or maybe you're connected with some friends around the world. But that's not that important, because the 200 nations are the most important. I think it might take the whole of our lifetime or a couple of lifetimes, but I think we will get past this phase, really, because it doesn't feel very natural. It doesn't feel very human. It doesn't feel very normal if you zoom out on the 40,000 years of humanity.
But what is interesting about the internet is, say there's I grow up in a small village and I really like. Right, I'm going to take it away from any sort of sexual or racial or anything, things to keep it to keep it so I don't get abused. But say I really like blowing up balloons, and I think I really like blowing up balloons, but no one else in my village does. I can go on the internet and find maybe 1,500 or 15,000 other people who like blowing up balloons, and then we create our tribe on there, and then we can start going, we want rights for more oxygen, I don't know. We want more helium.
More helium.
We want more helium, and the helium's running out, and we demand it. And it's
Forget
like,
carbon
it's
and
like-
oxygen,
it's like
we want
that.
more helium.
Respect our rights for helium, and it's like, yeah, exactly. I'm not interested in carbon. I'm interested in helium, and it's like then they've got themselves a little community, which is
Yeah.
what we're finding is the world is that's why I keep coming back. The internet is changing the world as we know it, because it's making the world a very small place.
Yeah.
Even though it's confusing a lot of people
Yeah.
at the moment. We're at a real transitional stage, aren't we, in the world, and especially being humans.
And the way I think of it is that we are a mind body. You know, we are both this and we are the functional meat sack, as some people say, that we have to live in every single day. And I think that the tribe of body has to be the people that you're on the streets around, and has to be the people that you're geographically near. But then there's also a sort of a tribe of mind, of like-mindedness, where you can find those people anywhere around the world and connect so instantly and so viscerally with VR and stuff like that. So I think in order to not get mental health issues, we need to make sure we keep some kind of connection and reverence for both the mind and body parts of who we are. But also there's some incredible opportunities that we haven't had with past technologies to explore what that means, and hopefully return to a bit of our humanity, really, our original tribal sense. But let's get back to the podcast, because the thing I really want to get for everybody is out of all of these interesting people that you've been talking to, learning from 120 something?
Yeah, well, I think I'm up to 140 now, yeah.
Wow, 140, sorry, different podcasts. I know that we've had a couple of interesting conversations, and the one that stuck out to me the most has been, as an idea I've not really heard about before.
Oh no, you've had bird poo on you. When I say, oh no, I think that's brilliant.
You couldn't get more life than that.
You love your nature.
Yeah, I don't want to wear it. I've literally just got a massive, not massive, an average-sized bird poo straight down my front. It doesn't get better than that.
There's nature for you.
There we go.
But that's why we've gone inside. And
Exactly.
Yeah. That's why never leave having a roof over your head. Get inside, get in a car, get in
It's
a
safe
train,
there,
get in a
it's safe
bus.
there.
Don't go outside.
You'll never get embarrassed.
You never get embarrassed. There's no conflict. Stay safe.
All I can say is I'm thankful it's autumn, because otherwise there wouldn't be any leaves on the ground, and I don't know what I'd be doing. But so yeah, this conversation, and if there's one that you think is more important, then bring it up. But the one that stuck out to me is the one about drugs.
Yeah.
Because you've interviewed quite a few people around that, and where is your thinking out on that?
Well, it just absolutely it's blown me away. It's been one of the biggest things which has happened thought-wise ever in my life. Totally grew up brainwashed that drugs were all bad. Alcohol, nicotine, caffeine, they're all right, but all drugs bad. But I grew up like that. And about maybe 4 or 5 months ago, Peter Blexley, the guy who's on The Hunted and various other things, he's an ex-plainclothes copper, end of my podcast, talking to him, brilliant guy, talking all about stuff, went, yeah, legalise all drugs. And I was looking at him going, he's just said that on the podcast. I'm not editing my podcast. The guy's mad. He's got, like, literally, the guy is mad. And so I went, obviously, I carried on and talked to him more and more about it. And he said, and I thought, this is crazy. Put the podcast out, and people started texting me, emailing, tweeting me, and on Instagram as well, saying, so you need to interview a few guys on this, Tim, because it's an interesting topic. He's not mad at all. This is the way forward.
So he said to you, legalise all drugs. That's the best thing you can do for society.
Best thing
then the flag goes up for those that are listening, and they're like, hang on a minute, this is interesting, but you need to get some more people on it.
Well, no, people going, Tim, you should get these people on because they know about it.
Oh, I see.
So a few people went, I can't believe you're shocked, because if you're in the know, it just makes sense. But I wasn't, and I just thought that whole idea was crazy. Being someone, by the way, who doesn't take drugs, so it's an interesting idea for me. And one of the reasons I don't take drugs, because I've been thinking about it a lot. I did some podcasts recently about it. The 2 reasons I don't do it: one, I'm scared because of I'm going to throw myself off a building, or I'm going to tear my face off, or something like that. Something weird's going to happen to me, and I'm going to not come back. And the second thing is, I work on TV, and for a long time, the worst thing you could ever do in our society is be caught. You're allowed to drink 40% vodka.
Yeah.
You're allowed to get absolutely as hammered as you like on alcohol, but if you're caught doing a line of coke. That is like, wow.
Game changer.
You're satanic.
Yeah,
There's something horrifically wrong with you for some bizarre reason. But I've only started thinking like this in the last 4 or 5 months. So I interviewed Neil Woods, ex-plainclothes copper, suffering a bit, I'd say, from PTSD. Reason why is he spent a lot of his life putting people in prison, informants and stuff. But he says informants are generally people in society who what's the word I'm looking for? Help me out. They're sort of... God, the words just can't come to my head. Anyway, so they're not the guys, the big guys at the top, Mr. Big and
I see what you mean. They're like runners. They're not like the top of the food chain.
Yeah, and they're generally sort of people who are down on their luck a bit like that sort of thing.
What you mean.
And he's using them for informants and stuff. And one of the guys who got put away. When they said Neil was the one who did it, he did this on my podcast. It's one of the worst moments watching someone look so destroyed. This guy went, oh, I thought Neil was my best friend. I was
my
like,
God.
oh my God. And it was because that's what they do.
Yeah.
Playing close coppers, they pretend they're their friends.
Wow.
And then and so he said, but
mess you up.
But then he realizes you never get the guys at the top because they're so protected, but the police are in on it because the drug world is so extreme.
Right.
That they actually get people and they stick them in the police force and work their way up. But they also, you know, the drug people, but they also put they go to the guys and they offer them money or they threaten them with violence. So
he realised that in doing the work, he was finding people and getting them caught, but it wasn't solving the systemic issue. The big guys weren't getting caught. Makes it worse.
It makes it worse. And so the reason why it makes it worse is if you make anything illegal, if you make rice illegal tomorrow, this is what Johan Hari says, so he says the same thing as well. If you make rice illegal tomorrow and I want to take your rice because I want it with my food, so I want to take your rice away from you. You can't go to the police because it's illegal. So the only way you can do it is by protecting yourself. So you protect yourself with, say, a knife. And then I go, I want your rice. So I come and I go, well, I'm going to come with a gun. And you go, Christ, the guys come with a gun. So I need a bigger gun. And that's the way it's going. And we've now got to the stage where we're contemplating arming our police. Because it's got so bad out there. When I spoke to Neil Woods, I said, has all the stabbing on the streets got any connection with it? He said, of course it has. Not every single stabbing is because there's a drug deal gone wrong, but every single stabbing is because the violence has got so prolific amongst those areas that kids are so used to the violence now that it means nothing to go and stab someone.
Everyone's tooled up the whole time, yeah. It's
So-
the social norms again. A bit like your
social
guy that says, what do you mean you're lying? Right? At least that wasn't another poo. It's a bud from the tree fell on me. But yeah, so it's a bit like we get to a different social norm. But let's go back for a second, because it is a mad thing that you said. Are you saying, when you say legalised drugs, are you talking
Absolutely everything.
everything?
So you get prohibition has never worked. You know, you go all the way back to, you know, the America. We're terrified now of everything falling on us.
Yeah.
What's happening? Go back to, you know, Al Capone and everything. It's like it didn't work. Prohibition of alcohol didn't work. Prohibition of drugs. And if you look into the history of it, Britain never wanted to make it illegal. America forced our hand after the war. They also forced the hand of South America.
Wow.
They wanted it to happen. They wanted it to happen, and so we did it. So since making drugs illegal, you know, this is something, if you want to, you have to heavily research it.
Sure. Well, we'll link your podcasts in and the links to the guys that you're talking about as well.
Perfect. You read some of their books as well. It's an incredible read of how brilliant this country dealt with drugs and how badly we do it now. It doesn't work to make anything unattainable for humans means they'll go and get it anyway.
Right,
so they'll find a way of getting it. And if you know, supply and demand, you can put a price on it if people want it. So yeah, legalise it all. They've done all the work. Look, let's just go back to the basics first of all. Why is alcohol, tobacco, caffeine legal? And yeah, hallucinogenics, MDMA, cannabis, etc., etc. Why are they illegal? Who decided which one? Because alcohol's really bad for you. Nicotine, we all know, is just a ridiculous drug. I mean, I used to smoke, but it's a ridiculous drug because it doesn't do much for you, and then will definitely kill you if you keep smoking it. And caffeine, you know, I quite like caffeine. I haven't got a problem. Caffeine's my friend.
Yeah.
But I've been so brainwashed to believing that any form of hallucinogenics is bad for me, MDMA would be bad for me and all this.
Yes.
And I'm a bit angry with it now. Because I'm a bit like, why did someone decide that I can go, like every British young man did, binge drink my life every weekend, and yet I'm not allowed to do these drugs?
Yeah.
Also, it's easier for a child to get drugs than it is to get alcohol, because they've made it quite hard for kids to get alcohol with all the, you know, when I was a kid, you'd go in a pub at 15 and the landlord would go, yeah, all right, son, you know, whatever. Nowadays, they're like, where's your ID? You know, so it's a lot harder to get alcohol. But apparently, because I don't buy drugs, I don't know this, but apparently you can go on the street type thing, and there's abundance of drugs out there you can buy, but you don't know what's in it. Whereas if it's legal, you know exactly what's in that.
So it's not
stuff.
regulated, because it's kind of black market. It's not regulated.
But then so that's just Britain. So there's the health consequences for our children. There's the health consequences for people who want to take it. There's the choice consequence if you want to do it. There's the getting rid of the amount of people we've got in prison. Look, when the rave culture happened in the 90s, I'm getting animated here, I apologise for this, but when the rave culture happened and everyone decided to start taking ecstasy and trips and everything else, basically, a large percentage of our population became criminals. It's mental. That we didn't go, well, hold on a second, we can't have them all as criminals. We've got to do something about this and legalise this stuff because otherwise it becomes mad. So this is the thing which is happening over here in Britain. But then you look at it on a world scale, the amount of people who have died in South America. We've all seen all the Netflix shows and everything about what goes on down there. The amount of people who've died, millions, because people want cocaine, and the fact that it's illegal. You legalise that, like anything. Suddenly these people will stop dying because they'll have to legalise it. They'll have to. Because it's still going on down there, isn't it? They'll have to pretty much reform. Otherwise, why are we going to buy our coke off criminals? We'll buy our coke off, cocaine off normal people, like businesses. And then you think of the Middle East with all the opium and what's happening there. Suddenly you're going to be having suddenly that becomes legal, so you can start, people over there start going, hold on a second, this is at the moment it's all sort of linked with terrorism and stuff like that. Money's a real driver for people, isn't it? So they'll be going, well, what do I want? Okay, let's legalise ourselves. Let's make ourselves. So you're changing the world demographic here as well.
So I can see so far. I can see that you're saying there's an arbitrary difference, let's say, potentially between how we think of some drugs that we've totally normalised and others that are like you're an absolute heathen, criminal, you're antisocial if you do them. Then there's the sort of fueling the black market, and if you do prohibition on anything, it makes it a big deal than if you get rid of it. Like in Holland, everyone can smoke weed, and I don't actually know what the statistics are in Holland of how that works. But it does, on the other side of it, it does sound to me like you're saying you want there to be loads of drugs on the streets, and you want everyone. Do you want everyone to be doing drugs?
I want no drugs on the streets. I want them in shops and licensed places.
Okay. Yeah.
In Switzerland, their heroin problem became really bad. So they looked around and they went, "What can we do?" And they went and did some study, and they came out and said, "Let's do the British system."
Okay.
So the British system, look, we've never made giving heroin by doctors illegal. They just stopped giving them license to do it. They've actually started in parts of the country giving them licenses back because it's got so bad. So they set up a clinic. So the way it works with heroin is a really weird drug, because most people who become heroin addicts, bearing in mind that most of the GIs in Vietnam were on heroin, they came off, and when they came out, none of them carried on doing heroin. A small percentage of them did. Okay, so it's a drug you can get off.
Right.
However, a lot of heroin addicts, this, by the way, this is all from my podcast with Johan Hari, Neil Woods, and Peter Blexley, and people like that. So when they come out of the army, so heroin addicts, and like alcoholics, they generally have underlying problems in their lives, mental health problems. They say abuse when they were younger, or some form of
trauma or PTSD of some kind.
Some form of trauma. So what they do in Switzerland is the British system, which is they have a clinic open, you get your heroin for free, they give it to you, but you take it there.
Okay.
Right? 80% of the people have come off heroin. Switzerland, being a very right-wing conservative country, was all like, whoa, heroin clinics, we're not doing that. They love it. They voted for them to stay because crime has come down dramatically. What people want if they take heroin really is therapy and help. Rather than just going, dirty scum, get into a squat somewhere, we hate you, you've got needles. What you really should be doing is, and they don't force them to ever give up, so you can take heroin for free in these clinics for the rest of your life. Wow. I think it's free because I think heroin's really cheap. So I think that's what, and it's pure they're taking as well, so they won't give you enough to overdose either, you go and take it. And then what they do is that every time you take it, they go, Dave, would you like to have a chat anytime? And they go, no, not at the moment, fine. And then sometimes they go, one day they go, I would actually. And you go, okay, what do you want to do? Do you want to try and get off it? Should we try and help you? And they go, yeah, all right. And then they're loved. And then suddenly they've got someone in their life and someone helps. And so, I'm painting just a rosy picture here, but the way we're doing it at the moment, it's not working. And it seems to be getting worse everywhere.
But I mean, that's a fascinating example that they're actually doing that in Switzerland. I haven't heard about that. If we were to have a more open and frankly realistic stance on the fact that there's anybody on the street, probably 1, 2 or 3 drugs, caffeine, alcohol, nicotine, if not the rest, they're using and probably enjoying in their life. So if we have a more open understanding of the whole spectrum of different drugs, then it might mean, I think one of the added benefits is we might get more nuanced in our understanding of how to use it successfully. I think that's what you're saying when you're saying, this little spray of ketamine, it doesn't mean you have to go mad off it, but there might be added values if we can engage with it in a more orderly way rather than it being all off in the darkness where you don't actually get the control or the quality there.
But what I still can't come to terms with is me and you can sit here and drink a couple of bottles of wine together, get a bit wasted on a bench, or some cider maybe more fitting.
Yeah.
We could sit.
White lightning.
Yeah, exactly. And yet we could maybe sit with a really mild dose of MDMA. I don't know what it's like, but we could sit there, take it, and we might just have a lovely experience. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it might be wonderful for our conversation. I know they were saying that MDMA, this brain surgeon said MDMA is quite good for people with PTSD. So, it's like... It's an interesting idea that we're being denied. And as humans, do you think we should be allowed to take drugs and substances?
I think that there is a role for good governance. I think that the most compelling thing I'm hearing you say is all the unintended consequences of the prohibition effect. So there's 2 things. There's making rice, anything, giving prohibition to them, making it illegal, making it hard to get hold of. If you do that to anything at all, you create lots of unintended consequences. So that's one part of it for me. The other part of it is there potential value or potential basic freedoms that we're being denied because we're not allowed to look at it more closely as a subject because it's so antisocial, and a bit of a rethinking, awakening to realise at the very base level, oh shit, maybe we have been sold a bit of a funny lie all this time that all of this stuff is from the devil and all of this stuff is completely reasonable and you can drink and do as much of it as you like. So I think there's probably 3 elements in it for me, and all of them are interesting and need more looking at. I mean, I've been amazed by the case studies telling me, like with Switzerland and other ones that we've talked about. But given what you know right now, where you're at with the conversations you've got and the books that you've read, if you were to think up your new agreement that you would like society to explore, could we, if you were looking to put something on the table of what is the thing you think we should be considering in society?
To do with drugs or to do with anything?
Well, let's start with the drugs one.
As a world, we have to start coming together and saying, right, we need this legalization of this drug and work out how it works in the world. In this country, it'd be great if we just did it, boom, straight, day one. But I think we need the rest of the world to come in line as well, because we need South America to realise that it's legal now, and that the
yes, it's a global trade, isn't it?
It's got to be global.
Yeah.
So we've got to come together global. And as I say, if you read the books and the literature on it, it was America who did prohibition of alcohol in their country. They've enforced prohibition of drugs on the world, really, when we didn't really have it very much. So I think the world needs to come together. That would be the first thing. And I think with the internet, this is not as ridiculous thought as it used to be.
No.
Because we could go, I'm sure most countries in South America would love it if it was legalised, because the violence would stop and stuff like that. But yeah, so I think it's a big global...
So you think together as a world, we need to come together and explore what it would look like if we could legalise all drugs.
It's happening anyway because of the medicinal side of it. It's happening anyway because everyone, I mean, America's pretty much legalised cannabis now, hasn't it? In most of its states. As a country, it's still illegal, but in most of its states, it's decriminalised. And other parts of the world are really looking at that. We're not as active, are we?
It may be happening, but I wouldn't underestimate the position that you find yourself in through having the conversations you're having, because you're the one that's put it together as a holistic conversation for me, both on the research side, the social cost, the global side, the history with the US. Like, that's a formation of a complete narrative that I've not heard. I've heard the fragments, but not all together as one picture. And is there any institutions or groups that you've found that are, I mean, these are the researchers and book writers that you've talked about, but
Well, UK Leap is the one.
they're doing the activism.
They're the one who are putting it all together and keep campaigning. They're spending a lot of time talking to politicians. They've got a lot of politicians coming on side now, but they know it's going to be a slow thing. I did the UK Leap podcast. I'm the only celebrity who's ever done it, and they said, wow, you're the only celebrity who's ever done it. I said, that's because A, I don't have an agent. I do now, but A, I don't have an agent because they tell me not to, and B, I don't do drugs. So it's like it's not a bad thing for me. It's not hard for me to do it, to talk about it, because it's not like I've got a dog in the race. You know, I don't give a damn if they legalise it or not. I'm not going to start doing coke tomorrow. Actually, I might. I don't know if they legalise it. Who knows?
But I think holding these spaces that do need someone to bridge the trust gap. You know, I wouldn't be talking about it if you weren't talking about it. And you're in a position where you can do that. I think that's important for people that have been around for a while, who are trusted and known, and you have like an unimpeachable history. So as you say, you're not trying to like back a horse that will suit you quite nicely. Thank you very much. You're looking at it, I can believe that you're looking at it in a more objective way. For this actually could be really good for society. This could reduce the burden on police. It could make streets safer. It could make, it could, on a human psychological level, could stop people thinking that they're demonic and done terrible things with their life because they've got hooked on heroin or whatever, that actually maybe they just need some more love, some community, some support. And actually some of the people that haven't crashed their lives, it's because who did the same thing, it's because they've had that infrastructure that not all of us are lucky enough to have through our lives. So I can see how, even if somebody looked at all of this stuff and came to a different conclusion, that the process of thinking about society from that perspective, it makes a lot of sense. And it's like, well, I think the way to think about it is, well, come up with a better idea then. You tell me a better way that could reduce the burden on society.
Can you also think about the amount of money raised as well? I mean, literally the amount of money which is going to come into the economy, which is now in the black market, right? So there's billions going into the black market rather than coming into our economy. So immediately we're going to be a richer country because we do a lot of drugs in this country.
I'd be fascinated. I'd be fascinated to see the numbers from a business perspective.
They do. They put the UK Leap and stuff produce them all the time. Yeah, it's ridiculous. I mean, our national health would be in such a better place. Because you might argue, there'd be more drug addicts. All the proof they've got is there's actually less. Yeah,
you're just kind of admitting the reality and then dealing with it.
Yeah,
I like the sound of that.
But and talking of, it would change the landscape of the world. I mean, all that stuff in the world would change by making it's a different world. But it would change the world. That's what's so fascinating about it. Is we watch all those films on prohibition in America with the alcohol, and we go, "That's nuts. We're doing it. We're doing it now.
Okay.
It's nuts. People shooting each other up. I mean, Bugsy Malone, a kids' film where they're doing it was all down on the prohibition. People are killing each other. Well, that's what's happening.
You've just hit me with that. I hadn't quite drawn that.
It's what we're still doing. Why aren't we learning? What's the thing of the definition of madness is doing the same thing
twice and expecting...
It's a different result. Yeah, we keep doing it. The other problem we've got at the moment is taxation. The taxation has completely changed now, where money's being moved around the world. We need some form of global taxation where we work out where the money's distributed. I listened to a great podcast where an economist said there is literally, which has changed my mind as well. When I heard it to begin with, I was like, "What? This is nuts!" Now I get it.
Yeah.
There's no point in having income tax anymore. It's ridiculous because when we had income tax, the people had the money. So you'd have the guy who owned the shop, and he'd have maybe 3 shops, And then he would but everybody, all the workers had the money. Now, the guy who owns the shop has 10 million shops all around the world called Amazon or something, like called Starbucks or Amazon or whatever. They own all the money, right? So they've got all the money, and the people have none of the money. So the money is all, and it's like this ridiculous game you've got with Amazon and Microsoft, Google, and everything. All these great people who've got all this cash, and they're all hoarding their money, and then they're going, we're going to give it all to charity. It's like, oh, Jesus Christ, why can't the world own the money rather than a couple of people?
Well, and it's because they're beyond national, aren't they? These tech companies they're not from the UK. They may operate here, but they're more powerful, really. Their system is wider and more powerful than the nation can handle. And then it's too easy for them to not have to surrender to it, really, because they can just move it around. And then, as you say, you get people like Zuckerberg who put, I think, nearly all of his shareholding, which is billions and billions, into a flipping Nora.
Full on fire.
Maybe, got me wet as well. That actually gave me a jump. But yeah, you got people like Zuckerberg saying, I'm going to put all of my stock, which is most of Facebook, into a foundation which I will then give out to the world, which is this sort of philanthrocapitalism. So basically you're circumventing democracy altogether because
you've got Zuckerberg going, I'm going to cure every disease or something, and you've got Bill Gates saying things like, I'm curing malaria in Africa, and you're going, well, you're just taking all the world's money and then you're playing God with it and making decisions which aren't democratized at all. They're just like, I will make a decision. That what people will do listening to this, they'll go, well, they'll just avoid their taxes, and it's like, but that's up to the world to go right, how do we get the money back? I interviewed a really fascinating, there's a futurist on my called Tom Cheesewright who says the world is
great name.
Yeah, he said the world is looking at this, by the way. The world knows. You know, you can't just keep on taking billions of pounds from Britain and going, I'm sticking it abroad so we'd have to pay it, and we're going, well, hold on. But the other thing is, so he did it on my podcast, he says the world's looking at it and it's moving that way, even though everyone will go, oh, they're just going to dodge their taxes. No, the world's got to start going, well, we need this money distributed better. Because Tim Marshall, who was also on my podcast, who wrote a book called, I don't know, Walls or Borders or something. More walls have gone up in the world since the Second World War than ever. Countries are becoming more defined with their wars, you know, and they want to do this, and the immigration or migration of populations is becoming huge. And he says in his book, which is really interesting, is if you distribute the wealth of the world better, people won't want to move because they don't want to move to our country because they love their countries. It's just they don't have anything. So if you want to, so when they're sitting there going, like the politicians in the general election, when they're talking about immigration problems, the real deal is a big deal. It's a bigger thing. It's like, where's the money of the world, and how do we put it down to where people need it? And I think this, I've always said this, if I say to you, can I take your income tax and give it to, I don't know, put it in Syria, say, you're going to go, can we not spend it on the potholes in my road, you know, the hospital up the road or something, because that's how we feel, right? Tribes, 150. Whereas if I say, do you mind if I take Amazon's money or Starbucks money and put it in Syria? Go ahead. Go on.
That's true.
Fill your boots.
True, yeah. If you can get it off them, good for you.
So the world will be very open to money being moved around. So it's an interesting place, you know, and I'm just rethinking it at the moment. As I say, I keep using that word, rethinking, but I've always been stuck in the, you know, small, make Britain the best, you know, just put over. And now I'm now starting to think, hold on a second, where is the money? What's actually going on? And people will probably go, it's easy for him sitting there as a TV presenter, but you know, I'm saying, don't pay income tax. It's a great idea.
If any of you guys who are listening to this have any links on this stuff, good, bad, ugly, stuff that you think adds fuel to this idea of how do we make sure that we don't have, call the system whatever you want, all we don't want is a few people gathering up all the coins for themselves. You want it to be shared out in a way where it's fair, essentially. And if you've got any good links, articles, books on that stuff, then please send that in, because that would be good to keep rethinking it, basically.
Well, even on the climate change bit, you've got, say, India industrialising massively. You go, rather than them starting from the scratch, I know they're not, why don't we all go, look, I know what you do, here's all our technology, so you don't pollute the planet. We know you want to do it and catch up, but we're also like, don't let them catch up. Jesus, because it's a cash grab all the time, is it?
Yeah.
Land grab, cash grab. We're humans, we can't help it, can we? But that's why I think at some stage we've got to have some sort of global politics going on.
Yeah, I agree with India and China, the corners of the village that are growing as so rapidly.
Yeah.
China's more difficult culturally to get into
Yes,
because
definitely.
it's its own world.
Yeah.
But India is a huge place that we've already really messed around with as the British Empire. And so I do agree that we should, especially in a world where, if we are in a Brexit world where we're loosening off our relationships with Europe,
Yeah.
there is a responsibility to look at our relationship with India and say, what can we do? How do we take our responsibility as seriously as we can to help bring India through in a way that works for the global village? Because we're already involved in that story. We've already done way too much probably, but if you don't come in with the same mindset and same empire vibes, but actually go in asking the question, how can we support you to develop well? We know you're going to.
Yeah.
You're not going to not do it, but how do we do it well together? I mean, obviously there'll be a bunch of relationships already, but it feels like we could be taking that more seriously. I don't hear much about India in the news. I don't hear much about India in any kind of part of social media, and maybe we could. I think that is a really good practical example of a big place that's making a big dent on the environment, and we've already got our involvement there.
Yeah, I think people will be probably listening to this thinking, oh, they're just so or Tim's just so naive with his big ideas. But things happen and things can change. Big ideas can happen. I think people, the only reason I'm bringing these things up is I've not invented them. These are other people who are talking about this stuff, and it seems to be moving in that direction. Interesting though, as I keep saying, when the general election comes round and we start listening to politicians, none of them will be discussing AI, none of them will be discussing tech or what's happening with the world of the internet. We're all so stuck still in this world of, I don't want to say it because people have a go at me, but the cliches, they just keep doing the cliches, and it's like, I just want a politician to step out one day and go, I want a brave new future where we embrace the world and we talk to other world leaders about what we're doing. I want a world where we look at climate change. I want a world where we're trying to plan for AI so it helps us rather than hinders the workforce. That's what I want. I'll be going, this is the guy or woman who's thinking about these things rather than just I hate the opposition and let's reopen the minds or something. I don't know, whatever.
Well, that's the biggest cost of Brexit, arguably, is the amount of airtime we've not spent coming up with good creative solutions for the environment, dealing with the AI stuff, and how we're going to deal with displaced people, because we are in an emergency. And I think for anybody, I do think it's an open-minded audience listening to this podcast, but for anybody who is thinking, God, this is a nice load of old chuff on a Chiswick bench, it may well be that, but we're not in a place in this world right now where we can carry on in the patterns that we've got. So we may not have the answers, but being willing to embrace a rethinking and an open-mindedness to new and different ways of organising ourselves, I think that is that's the starting point. That's what we need, whether it's you and me on a bench or whether it's everybody listening to this. The world is shifting around underneath our feet, and whether we like it or not, frankly, a lot will change in our lifetimes, and we have to figure out how to adapt and to handle that. And there's some scenarios in my mind that work out well, and it's quite a flourishing and exciting future. And there's other scenarios in my mind where I despair. But the more we can rethink, I'm sure the more likely it is that we can find a good future for ourselves and our kids.
Yeah, I think it's all positive. I think we're going through a bit of a dip at the moment with social media and the connectivity, but I think in the long run that positives far outweigh the negatives, because I think a younger generation of people, look at the school strikes, the young, the youth around the world going out on strike. That couldn't have happened years ago. So many major cities with kids going, well, we're going on strike. I mean, it's incredible. And I think we're starting to see the world come together in the internet as a sort of little mini tribe, or massive tribe actually. And I think people are, obviously we've got all the confirmation bias on there. You've got the swings to the extreme right and the extreme left going on at the moment. But I think there's a middle ground of people, swell of people like us. I'm looking at the kids going on strike and I'm going, ooh, I'm going, good on them.
Yeah.
Good on them. They're speaking, there's no violence. They're just saying I'm going on strike. It's great. My kids went on it. I loved it.
No,
Brilliant.
good. And so then to finish off, what's next for you? What's going on for you, and where can people find you?
Just, I'm still doing my TV show, which I absolutely love.
Sunday morning,
Sunday brunch, Channel 4. And then just doing more podcasting. There was a stage where we were busy trying to monetize it as what happens with these things. And then me and the producer sat down and we said, are we enjoying this? And we started videoing it for a while, and it was all right. And we've just gone back to basics, which is just audio again. And we're enjoying it so much. And we're like, does it matter if we're making money? No, let's just keep doing what we want to do. Because we know for a fact if we put celebrity on it, we get more hits. Whereas we put all the stuff that I'm interested in and he's interested in, the interesting stuff, that is not as many people listen. But it's the stuff that I really want to do. I've gained quite a nice little following of people who love it. So we've forgotten about monetizing it for the time being. We're just enjoying it, and then, just do more of the same on that and see how it goes. Just maybe amplify it a bit more. That's what I'm going to try and do. I'd like to get to more people.
Who would you absolutely love to have on there? Who would be your top 3 hit list?
Oh, top 3. God, do you know what? That's such a... I'd love to interview a guy called David Goggins.
Oh yeah, I know who you mean. He's like a crazy athlete, isn't he? He's come through great pain and challenge. Yeah, I've seen him on Facebook videos.
I find him totally inspiring. I'd like to interview Heyman Sunim, who's the Buddhist monk from South Korea, the one who sold 1 million copies of his book. I interviewed him on TV, but the interview is 6-8 minutes long. It's like not enough time. I'm fascinated by it. They're the two extremes. One guy's like, there's no finish line, keep going, struggle, try harder, keep going, and go again. He did a 250-mile race the other day, running race, marathon type thing, whatever you call it. And he got ill halfway through, got taken to hospital, so got disqualified, but discharged himself and finished it anyway. I mean, the guy's loony. But I love him. He's so inspirational. And then on the other side, Heyman Sunim is so inspirational. His book, something to, I can't remember the name of it now, something to slow down. It's just such a beautiful book, and they're the two extremes.
So you've got the fight on this side and the flow and the zen on the other end.
I find myself swinging between the two of them dramatically and finding the middle ground, which is where I think we all are. We're all in the middle ground, and we shouldn't beat ourselves up, because we are the majority of us are middle ground, and that's where with everything, politics and everything, we're all charging down the middle.
But I relate that back to the sort of on and off grid and the city and country, the mind and body. We are the human being, the zen, the flow, and we are the human doing. We have to figure out how to feed ourselves and our families and how to get on with life as well. And we need to be able to get to goal lines and then know when we don't need to have a goal anymore and just appreciate and value. And for me, it's not the middle. I found it not to be the middle ground, like water down them both in the same glass. It's like you take a sip out of that one, and then a bit later you take a sip out of that one, and it's two separate things, I think. But yeah, I'll have to have a look at this book. I like it. So those two. One more.
Queen.
The Queen.
Yeah, I think so.
She is a bit of a ledge.
Am I allowed
whatever you think about the Empire, she is a bit of a ledge.
Am I allowed to go down that? Am I allowed to go fancy, which I'd never get? I'm quite intrigued.
Why not? Of course.
I'm quite intrigued by the Queen. I wonder what she's thinking of it all at the moment.
Be nice to get her on a bit of MDMA before you did it.
Is the Queen just like? Is she just trying to keep it together all the time? And I mean,
Is it a stressful life?
Oh, wow. Would you choose that life? Not in a million years.
No way. No way.
How could you have that life that she's? But she's been great as as someone who leads the country. But keeping that family together, it's going to get harder and harder and harder, isn't it? And and how. There was that strange thing, wasn't it, where Boris Johnson had to go to ask her for permission to prologue the Parliament, and everyone's talking about democracy, constant democracy, whether it was democratic to do that, and whether this was democratic, and he had to go and ask permission off the Queen.
Yeah, exactly.
There's no democracy there.
It's not the People's Parliament, it's the Queen's Parliament, isn't it?
It's really funny, and I know everyone says she can't do anything about it, but she must know that position is there, and as he comes in, she must be going, "Oh, what are you doing?"
Yeah. Well, it's not. So we're not all the way there yet. It's not a republic, is it? We still have a. I don't know exactly how it all works when they're in the room, but there is still the link that it is the Queen's Parliament.
I wonder if I'd be quite interested to know if it's filtering down into our society.
Exactly.
And whether it has a positive or negative effect, how we believe it. But I'd love to know what her thoughts are. I firmly believe she loves the country.
Yeah. Well, I believe that too, and indeed the Commonwealth as well. But how much does loving, and she represents that worldview, let's say, and in the light of everything we're talking about, how much does that worldview, however genuine, however authentic, and however well she's done it, how much does that worldview help us as individuals in our streets and in the globe as we're going into this next generation? And unfortunately, because I would love to see you do a podcast with her. I don't think that much anymore. I think that time was, for me personally,
Really?
I think that time was past. I think.
See, again, another big rethink. If you'd asked me 2 years ago, we're putting the royal family up for a vote, democracy, referendum, stay or go, or privatise or stay as, taxpayers funding it. I go, yeah, keep them, love them. Now I'm going, whoa, I don't know. Whoa. I'm going to have to work it all through, every single aspect of it. How much, and when people go, yeah, but they're great for tourism, it's like, yeah, well, Paris do all right, and they beheaded there, France does all right, and with Paris and Bordeaux and everything, and they beheaded theirs, so it's like, I don't know. I don't know where I sit in the moment, and I'm pro the Queen, but I'm not sure the longevity.
Yeah. Well, put it this way. I tell you, the scenario I'd love to see is that the Queen volunteered her own family up for a referendum. That would be the best thing.
Can I host that?
I would love you to, yeah. Because then if she did it,
wear a suit.
if she did it, it would, for those that are royalists, she's endorsing it.
Yeah.
So she's saying that this is where we've got to in the world.
Yeah.
And I want to make sure that if we carry on as the royal family within the United Kingdom,
we're relevant.
that we're relevant and we've been ratified by the people, and then carry on. That's fine. But her very act of submitting herself to that sense of democracy would move us forwards, I think, and put more emphasis on our democratic structure, which I think would be a good thing. But
would she go, this is a once in a lifetime vote?
Yeah.
Like Brexit.
God, no.
Brexit and independence for Scotland. Once in a lifetime vote.
Yeah,
apart from we all want to do it again.
We definitely need to get better at referendums if that's going to happen. But anyway, Tim, thanks so much, mate. I really appreciate it.
Really enjoyed it.
I could do this any day of the week with you, and hopefully we'll do it plenty more times.
Anytime you want.
Should we have a little wander through the woods and make our way back?
Well, yeah, I think it's actually go for a swim.
This way. I honestly may never have have a more eventful podcast session than this. I got shat on by a bird, got a wet dog came and sat on my lap.
Nothing happened to me.
Yeah, you're in the good scene.
I'm the chosen one.
The kid came and sat with us. The dogs. I mean, I thought they were about to attack us. That pack of wolves. It was.
That's good.
That's what happens when you're
That's
outside,
good.
I guess.
That's fun.
Guys, thank you for listening to another New Agreements. Please message me, message hashtag New Agreements podcast with your feedback. I'd love to know who you would like to see on this podcast, what your thoughts are so far about the format and the way we're doing it, production values, all that kind of stuff. And just generally, what was it in the podcast that you found most interesting, and whether or not you agree with each of the new agreements we've heard so far. Take care of yourselves and look after each other. I'll see you very soon.